I believe it was the fall of 1983 when I first saw the Fixx live in concert. If my memory serves me correctly, snow had come a little earlier than normal and there was already just a bit of the white stuff in the mountains, and more specifically at Snowbird Ski Resort, where the concert was going to take place. And man, there were so many people up there that evening to see the Fixx. The band was riding high off of the success of their last two albums, Shuttered Room and Reach the Beach. I loved both albums, but I really loved Reach the Beach. Saved by Zero and One Thing Leads to Another were the hits off of the album, but there was another song called Running that I really dug. Even today, I still have that song on my iPod running playlist. For those of you that aren't all that familiar with the Fixx, they're a British import fronted by Cy Curnin. I'd always thought Cy Curnin was a former tennis player. I think that's because as I look up more information on him on Wikipedia, it turns out he was born in Wimbledon, England. So maybe that's where I got the whole tennis thing, because I can't find anything out there that says he was a tennis player. But I loved Cy's distinctive vocals. But even more, I loved Jamie west-oram's unique style of guitar playing. And well-known producer Rupert Hine, well, he did a fantastic job of taking all of the raw ingredients in this band to create a sound that was truly one of a kind. As has been the case with many bands, think Boomtown Rats and Mutt Lange, AC/DC and Mutt Lange, Def Leppard and Mutt Lange, Shania Twain and Mutt Lange. When the band and the producer finally part ways, the band is ultimately the one to suffer. And this happened a little bit to the Fixx, but that's a topic for another day. Today we're talking about a band that was on heavy rotation on MTV and riding high on the cusp of all of the new wave goodwill that college radio could muster up at the time. It's on that note that we return to the concert at Snowbird Ski Resort way back in 1983. It was up in the mountains near Salt Lake City, Utah, and imagine thousands of semi-rowdy Mormon kids hopped up on clove cigarettes and watered-down beer. That's all they sell in Utah. And anxious for the band of the moment to hit the stage. To say that we were worked up a bit is it's an understatement. And when the band finally launched into their set, the place was pandemonium. I still remember that one guy, isn't there always one guy, who was literally swinging from the rafters. And of course, he fell. And maybe it should have bothered me, but it didn't. At that point, I was trying to enjoy the band and block out as much as possible from the numerous distractions that were all around. I guess it's also worth mentioning that everyone was standing. I don't recall any seating at all, and there were way too many people there. And then it happened. Someone threw something on stage. Cy Curnin noticed it, and he gave my crowd, a death glare. Something else landed on the stage a few minutes later. Curnin didn't stop singing. He was a professional after all, but he did raise his middle finger to the crowd, and he held it there. He held it there until something else was chucked. Truthfully, I can't remember what hit, but I do remember that the band stopped right there and left the stage. Could a band really do that? I guess so, because they did. The bigger question was, would they return? Well, let me just pause the story for a moment and say that I have the utmost respect for musicians like the Fixx. Anyone who's willing to get up on a stage and lay it all out there, it takes guts, and a lot of us don't have it. And to have to deal with that kind of crap that the Fixx was dealing with that night, well, I wouldn't have blamed them if they hadn't returned. That said, about a half an hour later, the band hit the stage again and acted like nothing had happened. They played a great but rather short set that night, covering all of their hits, and then they hit the road. No encores, no you've been a great audience, you really have. They just disappeared. Not Utah's best moment. As I drove down the canyon with my buddies and we kind of talked about that evening's events, none of us were especially proud of ourselves. Not that we could have done anything about it way back then. But here's my chance to rectify a wrong. Something that has bothered me for years. So, Cy Curnin, Adam Woods, Rupert Greenall, Jamie west-oram, and Dan Brown. I'm not sure if you remember that evening, But if you do, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize on behalf of myself and my fellow concert goers, and I thank each of you for your willingness to forgive. I know that you have, because you've returned to Utah multiple times since then. Thanks again, guys. I'm glad you're still around, still making great music. For those of you that have lost track of the Fixx, they released a new album a few years back called Beautiful Friction. It's good stuff, and I highly recommend it. I also have really enjoyed the album 1011 Woodland, which contains re-recordings of some of the band's greatest hits along with a few new songs. So, what do you think? Were we out of line? Or is it just the nature of the beast and bands just need to expect something like that every now and again when they perform a concert? Also, while we're at it, what's your favorite song by the Fixx? Mine will always be Running, but I also like Are We Ourselves quite a bit. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and while you're at it, click on the thumbs up and subscribe buttons. That's how I'll know if I should make more videos like this one. But most importantly, as always, thank you so much for watching.